Good evening, everybody. I do promise that if it gets a little too warm in here, I'll turn the fans back on, but I think we should be able to make it through. So thank you all for coming. I think what we'd like to do is just go through what we have for your agenda. And you have all been able to take a time or a minute or two. You can walk over and see that this is the area that has the maps surveyed out. And there are obviously some ideas that we have already up here. And by the way, there were some people that did send in some emails which were very helpful. Yep. And one of them not so much. There was someone who sent in an email saying, let's have ATVs and dirt bikes there, and I guess they didn't understand the meaning of passive recreation. But we do appreciate the input, and really want to talk about that tonight. I'm going to turn this over right now to Marianne.
Thank you, everybody, for coming. And the purpose of the meeting tonight, the town approved purchase of 2 properties that we can now gain access to a very large open space parcel that the town has owned since 2005 that it obtained from the state of Connecticut. And the goal tonight is to get input on what residents would like to see for passive recreation uses there, because before we start asking our engineers to start designing, we want to make sure that the residents' input has been considered in those designs. It's ridiculous to design in a vacuum, and that's why we need your help. So what we're looking for tonight is what you would like to see, what you would use this property for, passive recreation in accordance with our open space policy, and the policy was on the table when you came in along with the agenda. So I'm going to open the floor up. If anybody has any suggestions of what they'd like to see there, please, that's why we're here tonight.
Do you mind reading through that list that you received so far?
Yeah, we got emails today. One of the emails thought that it would be nice to do a disc golf course. Another one asked dog park, bike trails, ice skating pond, small bird pond, summer splash pad or water fountain, sand volleyball court, horseshoe pits, picnic tables, porch-style swings, jungle gym, rock wall for kids, a skate park, and public restrooms, of course. So if there are whatever, we'd like to hear from you. We want to put your ideas on this list as well. Yeah?
So could I just ask a question?
Sure.
So do I need to state my name or anything like that? No. Okay. So up there you have passive recreation.
Yep.
And I'm seeing a lot of those would typically fall under active recreation. Passive recreation refers to non-specialized courses or equipment needed. So could you sort of, is the goal for this property to actually have passive recreation or both passive and active recreation?
Passive recreation in accordance with the town's open space policy, which these uses, they are in accordance with that policy.
Okay.
Yep.
How is John Q. Public going to be able to access that? Because it looks like it's between the turnpike on one side and then...
One of the parcels that the town just purchased, or is in the process of purchasing, on Cape Downing Road, as soon as you go under the underpass, that property right there that has road frontage, that's a 3.97 acre piece. That's one of the parcels that the town is in the process of purchasing. And the goal is to establish parking on that particular property to gain access to the recreational uses. Yep.
Okay, so there's going to be the trails to be used for hikers, bikers, and horses.
Yep.
The parking area so also could facilitate horse trails.
Yep, exactly.
So we can have like a kind of drive-in, drive-through, or horseshoe.
It hasn't been designed yet, but yes, it will be designed for vehicles and horse trailers. Yep.
I'm under the impression that the town was surveyed in the spring regarding this content. What did the survey results reveal about activities of preference?
We didn't do a survey.
Conservation.
Oh, that's right, the Conservation Commission. They wanted passive recreation. Their uses were more in line with hiking, biking, horses, fishing, non-motorized vehicles, and, hey,
Farmers market.
pardon me?
Farmers market.
Farmers market, yep, that was a big one. Let me see if I can find their presentation, because they did, at the town meeting, include that. So just bear with me a minute. They really weren't specific other than walking trails and a farmer's market. 94% of the respondents said the town should purchase open space for passive recreation and ag use. 95% said the town should purchase open space for passive recreation. 83.5% they would personally use the activities offered at this town space. 94.12% indicated they would like to see walking trails in a purchased open space, and 80% wanted a farmer's market.
So if a farmer's market were to be on the table, number 10 on the open space policy says that we can't have a temporary or permanent structure. So I'm not sure that a farmer's market would be well suited for this particular parcel of property if that's the policy of the town.
Why do you need a structure for a farmer's market?
Yeah, that, I was going to ask that question.
Well, pavilions for a farmer's market?
They don't have them currently. ECC plan.
Right, but if we did have a pavilion, we might draw more farmers to a market and be able to expand, which is an option.
Well, a pavilion could be constructed on the property by the town for use by the residents, not specifically for the farmer's market. And then the farmer's market could avail itself of that pavilion on market days.
Are you establishing a committee to review these options that are listed here? Or are you going to have how are you going to make the final selection of what is best use for passive recreation at this location?
The first selectman and I haven't discussed that yet. I don't know if he has any ideas.
That's actually a very good idea.
Yes, I think so too. I mean, the farmer's market might be too far out of the way and off the road. I'm not sure. That's one thing. A skate park, I'm not sure unless it's like more to the
Yeah, just
front.
because these are,
Not a skate park, okay.
yeah, just because these are on the list doesn't mean that's what's ultimately going to go there. We're just looking for input for ideas.
Any idea?
Passive, non-motorized.
I know I had thought of one before, which was a zip line. And it's something that other communities have. I think there's one in stores, outdoor, I'm trying to think of the actual name
Well,
of it.
the one at Stores is a company.
Yep, I know.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
The other thing that goes along with this is we would have to be able to monitor it, secure it, and staff it. So obviously we'd be working with the recreation department for a lot of these things. Certain times of day, night that it would be open and closed, and be able to monitor it so that we're safe. I mean, the ideal situation would also be, I mean, we've talked about access to the restrooms. Ideally, you'd like to have something which would be a permanent and tie into the sewer line, but there is nothing for sewer over there at this point.
Are other sporting fields allowed to be? Does that capture under, I don't have listed, such as like soccer fields?
Yeah.
Mary Ann, do we know if there's any opportunity for fishing there? Streams, ponds?
Up in the back, there is a stream that goes the whole width of the property.
So if it's good for fishing, we might want to add that too.
Yeah. Oh, I thought I did.
You had mentioned it before, so.
I believe, if you don't mind, I'll just point over to here. What you'll see is, right through this area here, is where there's a natural stream that goes through. So I just don't know how full it is throughout the year. This has been a wet year, so it may not be a good indicator. But it's something to monitor to see what it could be used for. Obviously, not something like canoeing, but it definitely could be used for fishing at certain points, if that's the desire of the town.
To kind of dovetail onto that, what's the rest of the topography look like? Is it a hill with ridges or flat?
Woods, and more woods.
Roller or
We have to get in there to actually give some access to it for the engineer to look at and give better ideas for topography. Right now, there are some hills, but not that much. And I think really, this also might be a little bit of a wetland area that goes through here. So those are issues and concerns we have to deal with.
I guess it's primarily oak, upland oak.
Could be, and if we harvest it, that's another way to get some of that wood out of it. Proper harvesting of the company.
Again, oak, gypsy moss, lots of dead, fire hazard, et cetera, et cetera.
We did have a gentleman who offered to and did take some topography pictures. Overhead pictures with a drone. I'm more than willing to share those with you. I just didn't have them accessible at this point, but we could definitely show you what they look like and put it up online.
With my wildlife hat, since
Yep.
I'm sort of local, are we going to do any sort of study to, if that is a wetland, to make sure that we preserve that and have a nice buffer so that any species are not affected by?
We would.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
To add to your list, I would like to see additional athletic fields or educational opportunities that we could use this space for. We should be doing outdoor classrooms whenever possible, and they can be self-toured.
If you're talking about things like along the lines of what's over the Killingley Trail for the Quinnebog, because what they have on that trail shows you the wildlife, it shows you what the trees and brush are. So yes, it's an educational opportunity, and that's a great idea to do that, because it's something that's what you want for your hiking trails, because you learn it as you go. If there's a nest area, a bird nest area that you wanted to be able to monitor and look at, same thing, you'd be able to say, here's what has been found here so far, and explain to people what it is, and I think those are more educational opportunities.
Correct, and there's also, I think that there was something about a play structure or something. There are it's becoming more common to have non-conventional play structures that can be integrated within walking trails. We take our children on one in Maine quite regularly, and they're a unique way to keep things nature-driven, yet allow children the opportunity to explore gross motor skills. That would be a wonderful thing to consider. I think the lower portion of the river trail that is by the wastewater treatment plant,
Yes.
they offer like athletic items. So there's like a balance beam every
What we
quarter
use
mile or
over here on the
something.
side, something like that.
But it's integrated within the trail.
Right.
Just kind of thinking outside the box a little bit.
You'll notice in the room, we also have with us our recreation director. We thought that to be an important part to integrate into the whole process, because he can help come up with some ideas. You'll also notice beside him is our grant writer. So we'd love to be able to utilize both of those gentlemen, because this is the time we want to start thinking about what can I do. The only downside I can see here is that you have 162 acres. So eventually there's an area where you have to squeeze it down to it. What's best would be having, like you mentioned, having a committee talking about what would be the best uses of it. My thought was along the lines of the trails. Now the trails can be multi-use, and I think there was even one discussion on mountain biking.
Yeah.
But you have to be very careful with how you integrate that, because you don't want to have a mountain bike path for people with horses or people with walking. The elderly can get out there and utilize that facility for walking. we definitely would like to talk about more things we can do.
Well, I have to say that we've always co-insisted with bikes and people walking. There can be designated areas of, like if a mountain biker wanted to go off, you know, on a certain trail where there is like whatever their little obstacles that they do, that type of thing, so that, you know, the horse riders or the regular hikers wouldn't be in that area. It could be maybe a sign, could be maybe something, maps or something that say this part of the trail is that, and this part of the trail is for horses. If you do a zip line though, I wouldn't want to be riding my horse and having somebody zipping over my head, thank you very much. But, so that would have to be, yeah.
How would
there
the
would have to be
liability
another
work on
thing.
that?
So,
The liability would work on any part of this park. If a zip line was ever constructed and put in, obviously we'd have to go through all the details with other companies of how they've done it, what their liabilities are. You have to have the proper equipment, the proper training, the proper staff to go out there and help and support. It wouldn't be something like you'd see at, is there one at Foxwoods? It wouldn't be like that. We're talking for smaller ages, something that is, you know, minimal heights.
I say, being assistant scoutmaster with the Lisbon troop, Lisbon Boy Scout troop, I would offer Lisbon Meadows as a model for what the community of Lisbon has done with an open chunk of land, and use that as a model for maybe doing something like this. They have a soccer field. There's a bridge over over the stream. That was an Eagle project, by the way. There's several trails, all of which were Eagle projects. And, you know, it's just, they have probably twice as much land as that. But, again, I would offer up Lisbon as a model to follow, just as a land use kind of thing.
Is that right downtown Route 12?
Right off
I
of
mean,
12.
160, what is it? 169?
169, yeah.
Yeah,
169.
okay. Where the buses park.
Right in the center is the town hall's right in the center. It's just a couple of yards down the road,
Yeah.
across from the church.
And while we're standing here and getting ideas from you, this isn't going to be the only time that opportunity occurs, because we'd like to be able to refresh people's memories about what else can go on. What's going to happen here tonight is that you're going to go home and say, this is the meeting we were at, we talked about this, and you're probably going to get an idea or two from somebody else. So it's just the beginning stage. We definitely want to have your input on what goes on. I thought one of the most unique things that was mentioned out here, I mean, barring the zip line, but I thought one of the most unique things that was mentioned here in that list is the very first thing on it. You're talking about disc golf course. For those people who've ever been on a disc golf course, they're very unique. Yeah. My daughter brought us to one, and it was very unique.
And along the trail, I'm sorry, along the trail it did have like educational stuff for the kids, so what it did is it incorporated everything. So you had your disc golf, you had also your walking on the side, and then you had your educational, so the kids along that were able to learn about plants and everything like that. So it's kind of, the city kind of combined it together. So like, and there were stops along the way where you can like pull up and like have a picnic or whatnot, but it was more educational for the kids' focus of something for the family to do at that one park, but sky's the limit for everything else.
And I learned I can't play disc golf.
Yes, yeah, no.
I was just going to add, Lisbon Meadows also has a disc golf course, and that also was a new project. So, a couple years old.
And if you leave here and then you think of something when you get home, please email us.
If I may, can we kind of get like a collective idea, the general census here? Do you guys want the least amount of altercation or like change to the current state of the forest? So the term passive, whoever mentioned that at the very beginning, I would kind of agree with them in the sense that you're not supposed to alter too much with the current state of the property. So is that kind of the general census here, where, you know, because I heard, you know, sports fields and, you know, building a couple structures, that technically would alter what it currently is. So you know, I'm just kind of curious, again, we're trying to get your feedback and your vision, so would we all kind of say?
Well, I don't think 15 people represents
I
what
agree.
our
Yeah.
community is. So I was going to ask the next question, are we using Nixle or other forms of media or outreach to capture what some of our community might think is a, you know, beneficial use of this space? You know, we certainly caught the Turnpike Buyer ad, but by chance. And so I just was wondering, do you have, I mean, this is a big project. We're talking about 160 plus acre, or
162.
162. I certainly don't think that 15 people should venture to make that.
When the Conservation Commission put out their flyer, how many responses?
Survey.
The survey.
They had 61 responses.
So, and I will, since you mentioned it, I will say that not one person on the Ag Commission ever was notified or knew that that survey had gone out. So however it was released to the public, what I'm saying right here is that it's not visible. We need to figure out how we can become more visible to share this information with, I mean, I'm a chair in town, and I didn't know that that survey had published until I read it in minutes that they were releasing the results. So if people who are actively involved in our commissions aren't seeing it, then I can guarantee you that our residents are most certainly not seeing it. So I'm encouraging this body here that's moving forward with an amazing project that can definitely benefit our residents, that we should really think about how we seek out their input. I think our attendance at town meetings proves that, you know, this might not be the method for most people to appear in person. So I just challenge you to think about how we can get this out to the public so that we can get a really good, viable list so that you can pull together what is best for the community.
So we start off definitely with an article in the newspaper, because that always gets people to speak. And then utilizing Nixle, utilizing the town website and Facebook page for a follow-up meeting, because that's really where you get your majority of people coming out that are really interested in it. So, you know, that's really where to start. This is I thought this was actually a decent turnout for the first part, because you never know what you're going to get. Sometimes we've had meetings and have 2 or 3 people here.
2 people, yeah.
Yeah. So this is good. It's a start.
I got one thing to add, a couple things to add. Given the property location, and I understand the soccer club needs fields, they really, it's terrible that it's so dependent on the schools, you know, like field usage. I'm not sure if that's the location for, I don't know if there's another piece of property that's better suited for that in town. Because you got all that wetlands to get through, the parking is out by the road, the parents are going to complain about walking all the way into the soccer fields. Might be a bit of an issue. Farmers market, it's a little bit far out of town, I think. I think that's more, needs to be more in the center of town area. I agree, it's another thing that's needed, or could be a benefit to the residents. I'm almost thinking personally, the horse riding, mountain biking, walking trail type thing might be the best use of that land.
So to me, it looks like a jigsaw puzzle. And really what it is, what fits best where. If I was to look at this and include where we have for parking and look for the possibility of, I'll just ballpark it, but if we had in this section over here, talking about maybe the farmer's market, and you're not having it up all week, it's just a day. You also could be able to fit a small, or a sports field in this area here, because it is dry. Once we get the final numbers of what is dry and what isn't. But that would be the area that would do that. And then the rest of it really is leading to exactly what you're talking about with the nature trails, the walking trails, hiking trails, horse trails. I keep looking this way for the horse trails.
And I agree, I think that this.
You know,
I don't
it
know.
sounds, it's a lot of land,
Yeah.
but yet we have a whole bunch of things, it's not going to be that much land, so then everybody's going to be kind of on top of each other. And
But I
when you
think
go
it does-
out into the nature, you want to kind of be in nature, not, you know, you don't want to, you just want to have a nice,
Relaxing time.
pleasant time without a whole bunch of stuff going on, or if there is a certain section that, if that's that certain section, and maybe, you know, obviously communication would be notified of when things are going to happen. You know, even for hikers or horseback riders, there's something going on. You've got to know.
The other thing that you think about, and I did after the initial thought of what can we put there, is there are going to be areas that are ADA compliant, so you can have people who have, handicapped accessible areas to go to. So there's a lot of thought that goes behind that. I think one of the good things that I saw out of the trail for the Quinnebog Valley Trail over in Killingly is that there's an area that's paved. So it's nice access and anybody can get to it. So there's a lot of thought that has to go through the whole process. And then after that, obviously we'd have to mark out where delineation of the wetlands are, look at what we might be able to fit in. Like I said, that jigsaw puzzle comes into play. Well, what can I put in these areas?
Besides, like getting more information out to the public about this, eventually I'm thinking that there might be some kind of committee to kind of help all this and put this together and keep it going, or some kind of committee to keep it organized.
Yep. I think that would be good for work in cooperation with the Recreation Department as well, because they're going to be helping you to eventually staff, eventually help and support it. And of course, there's an area we're going to have to lock them down at night, because you wouldn't want people going in and hurting anything or damaging anything. When we put up cam trails, all those questions could be asked about how you make it safe and secure.
Sean, you have a couple of comments?
Well, I was just thinking, I think the trails could all work together if you did like a large horse trail around the perimeter of the property or something, and then you did the biking more towards the middle or in a little ways and walking trails in. You probably could work around each other pretty well without actually having to cross paths too much.
Like a blue trail, yellow trail, kind of like how they have in other little
Yeah.
footprints with labels.
I mean, it's a large enough piece of property, I think, by the time you get around 100, I don't know for sure, but I'm thinking by the time you get around 162 acres perimeter, you might be almost done riding for the day, I'm not sure.
Maybe.
It depends. But like I said, when you go to the state forest, you come with hikers and bikers, and there are trails already that are more designated for one or the other, and there are all crossings.
Yeah.
They do cross.
But I think the mountain bikers are going to want a little more extreme trail, like you said, with
Yeah, they have to. They
ripples
go
and
on.
jumps and turns and stuff like that.
That'd be fun. That'd be really fun. You also need to pick who your audience is. You're kind of talking about a bunch of things that require more athleticism than the majority of people have. I have horses, so you're talking about now a very narrow population of who has access to animals. Just so you know, 35 acres is a mile, so a horse could go around that quite a few times when you think about it that way. But if you talk about kids, if we want to encourage our youth, and I think that's what I would hope our recreation department wants to do, is encourage our youth to get out and exercise. That certainly isn't accessing that large portion of the parcel. We're talking about like that beginning section, because kids aren't going to walk
Oh yeah, all the way back.
15 acres to get to some sort of like park for them. So whoever this committee is, should really consider what our targets are, because you're certainly not going to be able to accomplish everything on the list, and you're not going to write a grant that will cover everything on the list. So it's important to figure out, what can be phase 1, phase 2, phase 3.
And like I said, just because things are on the list here, these are ideas that we got. So these are just preliminary things. This doesn't mean that this is what's going to happen.
Have you considered talking to other towns that have gone through this venture in the past and getting their pros and cons and good investment, bad investment type of research?
We haven't done that yet. Again, as Kevin said, this is the initial step.
Gotcha.
I think we'll reach out to Lisbon now.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, there's a lot of towns, like Jenny said, you go to Maine and they invest in that heavily. And it's pretty slick, some of these places. And their parking lots are packed. And so that tells you that the draw is there, that people are going to use it. Because that should be part of your recreation mission statement, right? You want full population to be using it. As much as possible. Yeah. At the end of the day.
That's why I was thinking of the issues with the ADA compliance for the people who are elderly who want to be able to utilize it. smaller circle for walking, or path for them, and then you're actually adding on for everybody else.
And just another thought, right? My forestry background, that's right on top of 395. I would think, from a forestry background, don't cut a tree anywhere near that, so you have a green buffer, a silent buffer,
Yep.
to protect the rest of it. So we're talking how many feet back that is, so that would eliminate a strip along the edge, just as a sound buffer.
Might be a good idea.
Very light area.
Yeah, something like that. Because, the state's always thinning their woods back, and then, they've been,
And it's still doing.
yeah, they've been clouding the woods here, I think the average person doesn't want to see stumps. On the other hand, if they push that woods back, that's going to make the sound come out that much further. There's a possibility, a potential problem there.
So the hypothetical, years from now, when this is all done and complete, we still have to talk about the other part of it, and I'm thinking with my other side of my brain, which is now we have to maintain it. You just don't put it up and say, okay, we're done. So we have to talk about, maintenance of every single item. I love the Lions Club. They gave us that nice pavilion, but for free. But now it's our responsibility to maintain, upkeep everything. And the same thing would happen here, which would add to his budget. As long as we keep it simple and keep it so that it's informative, I think the nature trails, the hiking trails are excellent ideas. It gives people an opportunity to get out into the fresh air, for whatever it might be, mountain biking, horse trail, whatever it might be. Again, another opportunity, because one of the few things you have is areas to go to do these things. All of those could be here. Now, it's just a matter, like I said, the jigsaw puzzle has to be put together as to, after you figure out where the wetlands are and what is the buffer area, where you can put things. So would you like to see another meeting maybe in a month or so, talking about follow-up and see if we can spread that word the right way?
Do you have gardens on there? So I'm thinking like native pollinator gardens and stuff like that, like there comes a space where we could like plant native wildflowers, to encourage
We don't, but
the
we can
native
add it.
bees and the butterflies and stuff
Would
like
that also be done in a raised bed?
I probably would not do it in a raised bed.
So if we're talking about farmers market and use of utilization for, what about for the elderly in a raised bed for other things?
I think what
I know,
is more natural
Yeah,
to
you're
fit
looking
in
for the
with the
nature.
environment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I'm thinking if the ultimate goal is to use this more passive versus active, in the legal definition, not what our town's policy is. Having, like, if we're clearing space, to put in, native wildflowers, not, that sort of stuff to, if we're gonna be doing a lot of work there, and this is strictly from my wildlife aspect, we're gonna be damaging a lot of habitat for the animals that are there. So, I'd like to see, like, if we're damaging some, that we're giving back, back to that property and the animals that are there.
And would that be low maintenance also?
Yeah, so native wildflowers are
Would it be low maintenance?
No.
it's very low maintenance.
Which is good for the budget.
We don't want horses to be
Perhaps when we walk, or whoever walks the property, a botanist could go, just to identify any plants that may be an issue that we don't want to take down.
And we'd also have to consult the state's natural diversity database and bring them down, because there are indeed bee areas on that property, not many. But we just need to make sure that there's no endangered species or flora or fauna in any of those blobs.
We just happen to know a botanist. Seems though we talk to him on a regular basis now.
Oh,
Yeah.
the state.
That state botanist, Bill Moorhead, so we talk to him on a regular basis because of what we have over in the cemetery, Road. Which, by the way, just plowed.
Did it. Good.
How about more ideas? Any Other ideas?
Oh, here's an idea, getting the word out. Could we do another survey? Conservation Commission did one in general for open space. Could we do one specifically for this and advertise it better?
It would cost, that would be up to Kevin.
Does it? No. Yeah, I don't
It
know.
really doesn't cost
How
that
does
much.
it cost anything?
Yeah.
Mailings, sometimes if you want to do it mailing wise.
Oh, last one you did
I think-
online, right?
The last one was
Printed,
Survey Monkey.
yeah.
And we did have printed forms available, and printed forms were submitted. People did pick them up and fill them out.
The recreation department can utilize some of the programs that we have to do a survey. We can do that.
Okay.
Because we recently subscribed to Constant Contact.
Are we allowed to use our public schools?
Voting is-
You know, like, I think about recreation, they send out, not recreation, FRC sends out a newsletter monthly or bi-monthly that gets distributed through the public schools, that goes home to our entire public school population with information. I'm just thinking, what is our easiest, cheapest ways to disseminate information? Like, that's my job. I'm constantly trying to think about that all the time. How can we get the most bang for our no dollar? And so I just think that that is an opportunity, you know, whether we use the slant of recreation, because I know, you know, recreation can get things into the public school as well.
I'll talk to Paul Brenton tomorrow. We'll do a discussion with him first thing in the morning, and I'll ask the question. We have our senior newsletter that goes out.
Yeah, so we have the senior newsletter, and then also with our new registration software, we have over 500 email addresses that we can utilize to send out the survey link if we were to do it digitally. But also, we also have Constant Contact, which creates, it's a different version of Survey Monkey, where you can create a survey on it and we can send it out digitally. But we can also have paper available as well.
So we have lots of ways to get it out there. I think the idea would be you have to also kind of mold around what you want to have put out there. So are there people here in the auditorium tonight that are interested in being on that support committee to start the process? Well, you got a pen?
I have a pen. And I have an empty sheet of paper.
All right.
No.
Is there ice cream involved?
Huh?
No ice cream?
Yeah, there's no ice cream.
I don't want to, no. The ice cream.
So if you put your email address on there, a name, email address, I think would be enough, unless you want to also put your phone number. And we can get you.
I said there's no ice cream involved? I want to do. Oh, jeez. You have to get the ice cream first. Okay, well, I'll have to talk to Wetlands, I guess.
You missed it, the farmer's market is, but
Why is that? You didn't tell me that, man.
I'm just.
Was there chocolate in? Right?
it's just-
So, Mary Ann, correct me if I'm wrong, but is there not also another available monies? I'm not talking just grants, but can you utilize open space for certain items that we may want to put in?
Yeah, absolutely. The open space fund can be used for improvements to the land, maintenance of the land, repairs. It's not just for purchase.
Oh, so it's like all inclusive, like a shop and food.
Well, yeah, but not that drastic. No ice cream.
No ice cream.
Mary Ann, can we get creative with like our new partnerships with perhaps industrial and commercial industry that we're bringing in? Like, you know, I know that they often can be offered incentives to coming into our community. Is there a way to like flip it and have it be that they make contributions or donations towards our passive recreation areas? Like, is there a way to do that? I don't know if there's a legal
Well, we
way.
can
I'm not
reach
sure.
out.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's a legal way to do it because it's been done before.
Well, depending on the fencing that you have, you could always do, you know, I have PTO experience, so you can get companies to buy a banner and you charge them to put it up on the fencing, so as advertisement, so to speak. So that might be one
Yeah, just have to keep in mind the zoning regulations don't allow off-site signage, just saying.
Just because she mentioned fencing, we're not talking about fencing this whole property, just like the entrances.
The entrance area.
Because that would limit wildlife going through it.
Absolutely.
Any other ideas or any other comments?
Mine can't go on the list. Ice cream.
I promise you won't miss it.
Do we already have one?
Yeah, the final purchases are in process. We have the agreement, the town has approved it, so we're now in that process.
Making sure we're not getting all upset.
Oh,
No, the attorneys are drafting up the documents.
Okay. That is a good purchase.
no. More than likely sometime late next week or the week after, we could be completed.
We're actually only purchasing one.
Two.
Yeah,
So-
that's the acreage.
Okay, so the first one is the Hall property, which is 3.97, you see marked down here.
Yep.
And the Botello family is the next one, and that is 18.57.
Oh.
That gets us directly in. That having to, what we initially did was, we went,
Yeah.
first of all, we knew that this was landlocked, we couldn't get to it. Kyle Collins actually said, hey, look, I know this piece of property is for sale. And so we sat down and said, why don't we just talk about going ahead and purchasing, and talk to the Botello family, the Botello-Riley family, and say, can we get a little sliver over here just to get us in? They were very gracious. We went to go talk to them, he said, oh, we have a better plan for you guys. Would you like to buy the whole 18.57?
Almost half of their property.
But it's all wet. There are a lot of
Well,
wetlands.
the wetland goes through it, and there is some area that is dry on the side. So we have to, again, mark it out, but the idea is it gives an open area now you can actually do different things in. So that was very good to be able to do that, now that's why the 162.
I apologize for missing the vote night for the acquisition of this property. What is the remaining balance in our open space fund after the
A
purchase?
ballpark, because I don't know the
Ballpark,
actual
fine.
numbers, we paid the total 103. There was a little over 420 that was initially in that. A lot.
So the fund is still quite healthy.
What?
No, I think it's excellent.
Oh, I have plenty to say. Not
You're-
yet, you have to have the ice cream and the whole.
Oh, you want to take more?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, there will definitely be some more meetings.
What do we know yet about wetlands crossings?
We don't at this point, we have to actually have it marked.
We haven't had the wetlands flag yet. The most we've done, the engineer has surveyed the 18.57 acres.
Because clearly by the maps originally, it looked like there was a lot of wetlands in that area.
This section here.
Yeah, we got to cross it at some point.
Right.
So would we pay a fee for that, or would we just recreate the wetlands ourselves?
Well, that would depend on the wetland commission, and I don't, depends on how the crossings are proposed. And there's absolutely possibility that if you disturb, say, 10 acres, you could replace that 10 acres somewhere else on the property.
Of course, with wetlands approvals.
Absolutely. That would be part of the application.
I guess the final thing that I would say is, thank you. Because really what this is about is your town, your community, and the ideas that you can come up with, if we can create them on this, sounds like a lot of positives that we can do for the town. You work with the recreation department. There is, again, the monies that's still available to help out the next phases of it. Part of that will go to the engineering to make sure we have everything lined up. And those meetings will continue so we can know what else to do. And I think that looked really nice. It really would.
So do we have any other suggestions, or is everyone good for tonight? And I really want to thank you all for coming, because I'm tickled pink that there have been this many people show up. I really am. And we will be having another meeting next month. Don't know when yet, but we will schedule it. It will be on the town's website. We'll make sure it's on the Facebook page. It will, we will let people know.
And hopefully work quickly to get something out for a survey, because the quicker we can do that, the next steps will be coming forward quicker.
Yeah, because, I want to apply for a grant that the deadline is November 2nd. I want to apply for engineering design, which is, even if it's not everything that we want, at least I want to have something started for at least access to the property. Okay, thank you all. Have a good night.